Hey everyone, it's CJ, and this is our first episode of CJ After Hours. I'm trying out something new. I know you guys have normally watched me on Objection Live or Objection Celebrity Court Chatter with the pre recorded episodes, but I decided to do this CJ After Hours. I was inspired by two creators, Omar the Tilted Lawyer and Colonel Kurtz. I'm gonna put up their channels up here. They both do late night streams, and I thought it was really cool. Omar does family law, which is really funny. He does Reddit, and he'll go in there and go into the advice on Reddit, and he has a bunch of lawyers on, and they kind of go over these like family law cases where people are like, oh, someone's going to divorce me and stuff like that. I actually just left his live right now, but okay, here, share screen. If you guys want to follow him, this was the inspiration behind it. He's got the blue and the neons. I went orange with it. And so he's actually live right now. I'm going to try and see so our schedules don't interact, because he was still live. I left his to come and do mine, but I was inspired by his, and then I was also inspired by Colonel Kurtz, who does the lives. She also does legal stuff, and she did one last night that was really, really good. It was called Tough Realities live stream, and she covered a lot of the Me Too stuff, the new Depp versus Heard book and stuff, and so she does them late night, and she goes into in-depth topics as well. And one of them was she said she's going to start making more late night videos on just existential stuff and philosophy and things like that. So it's not just the legal stuff, it goes into other stuff. So that's what I kind of wanted to do with today's stream, which was oh, and look, I brought on a couple guests today for the stream. I have Pam Entertainment TV and Tina from Legally Locked that I brought on today to do this stream. It's called Quid Pro Quo. Let me put the image back up.
For sure.
Quid Pro Quo, Perks, Projects, and Price of Silence. So these are two of my favorite creators, and I'm really honored to have them on the channel today. I'm going to share their YouTubes as well, so you guys can follow them. Legally Locked normally covers comic book stuff that I also follow. And she just started her Legally Locked channel on YouTube. And then Pam Entertainment TV, she's currently covering the Diddy case. And so for those who are following me with the Diddy case and you guys want more in depth, because y'all know I had to tap out of the Diddy case. I went on a live with Hines, and basically we were reading the transcripts, and I had to be Cassie, and I tapped out mid reading, and I was like, the energies are too much. So I'm kind of covering it on the surface through like MSM. But I know Pam covers it more in depth, and she has some really great insights. Thank y'all for coming tonight.
Thank you for
No
having me.
problems. We happy. We happy to be here.
So we have a really good show tonight. Before I start, I want to pull up their YouTubes just so you guys can subscribe and give them a follow. Let me pull that up real quick. Here is Pam's YouTube, and she's at Pam Entertainment TV. And as you can see, she recently covered the Tyler Perry. She reads the whole lawsuit filing. So if you guys want to catch up on like the entire lawsuit filing, she does the live read, and you could put your earphones in and be cleaning up and listening to it. It's really insightful. So make sure to subscribe and go check out that video. And then we have bear with me with these transitions. Did it come up on the screen or no when I put it up?
Pam's did.
Okay. Okay, because I'm trying to figure out. Okay, there we go. I think I have to leave it like that so it comes up while we're still there. Okay, and then let me pull up. We got Oh, I have your at She Dreads Me, but I think it's
Hey,
connected to
it
legally.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah, both. You
This
can click
is,
on.
if y'all into comic book stuff, she does entertainment, movies, and TV, and I love this. She did a great episode on Sinners, and then we have her legal channel, as well, so you guys can go subscribe. She does the Diddy trial as well, and then she's got some hip hop trials, Lil Durk. I know that I want to do a show, and Pam, you can join us too because I had talked to Tina about doing hip hop trials. Like I want to do the DDG. There's a bunch of them that I want to cover. There's a
Yeah,
retrial coming up too. So if y'all want to collaborate on that, I'd love to do that because on my Objection channel, I mostly do like Baldoni and like kind of like the bigger cases and stuff, mostly like Hollywood cases.
mm-hmm.
But I'd love to cover some of these in the hip hop space. So um,
Down. Yep, yep, yep.
so now that we got all out of the way, thanks chat for being here. Laura's here. She's my mod, and I appreciated her for modding. She modded for me earlier in the day from 3 to 5, and then she came back on. So thank you for that, Laura. So with all that being said, we're gonna get right into it. With our first segment, which is going to be Tyler Perry. So, like I said, Pam, you did the reading of the actual lawsuit and everything. What did you think on that first read?
Here's what I got from the first read. Now, he has some issues in regards to this person being his employee and him doing these text messages and all those different things, because I'm sorry, that's not the kind of behavior and things that you send to your employee as the employer. This is going to get you involved. This is going to get you in trouble. Quid pro quo. It's going to get you in all kinds of trouble. If
Yep.
he had done it, if he done it the first time and he made some sort of amends, that would be one thing. But to hear that, you invited this man to your home, according to what the lawsuit said, you assaulted him, and also you were doing everything that you needed tried to do to try to woo this man, even though this man said no, even though you've increased his pay and said, don't talk about the pay that I increased you with because you're using your business as that at that point. Now, I will tell you, I think once that happened in regards to Derek, I think he realized what was going on. And in his effort to collect evidence and all this other stuff, he let it go on, in my opinion, a little too long. He let it go on too long. Go ahead and get rid of it and be done with it. But I will tell you, there was a few text messages that I read that I felt like we didn't have the appropriate context, because it felt like it was a blurb in the middle of something else. So I'm not sure. Now the text talking about him being a good top and a bottom and all those things, and those texts, I'm sorry, Tyler, you were inappropriate. But there were a couple of texts in there that I felt like when he started talking about the abuse, he put it in the meat of the lawsuit. He didn't show us the text.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that
Yeah.
when I show that part of the lawsuit. Tina, what did you think on the initial read?
On the initial read, I'm like, hey, this sounds very familiar. He's not the first person that has accused Tyler Perry, quote unquote, of these things. There's been rumors about Tyler Perry and his casting couch for 10 years now, probably longer.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that was hesitant to me was I felt like, Tyler, if you knew you text these text messages, why did you let this lawsuit get this far? Why didn't you stop it ahead of time? So a part of me feels like maybe Tyler feels like these texts aren't real. This didn't happen. And I'm just going to take this to trial. I'm going to fight it, because anybody that's following the Diddy case, they have forensic people that will go in and verify this stuff. So a part of me feels like Tyler may feel like this is not real, so I'm going to take it to trial. But a part of me is like, this isn't the first time we've heard this about Tyler,
Right.
quote unquote. So
yeah, so before we get further into these cases, I wanted to add this to the stage real quick. Okay, how do I remove? Hold on, let me remove this. I got this from Pam's live, which I thought was really cool, because if we're going to be going into these crazy topics. She has this trigger warning. So for anyone that's watching this live stream will review stories with incidents of DV and SA. And then if you're someone you know needs any help, there's the hotlines there. So yeah, we're gonna go into deep into this. When you were saying like the top and the bottom stuff, I'm like, okay, let me put the disclaimer on here. And so for me, I'm going to give my opinion on the first read while Pam was reading it. I really enjoyed that I got to read it through Pam because she brought up a lot of great points as she was reading it, as far as Tyler's behavior, which she just went over right now. But with the way that the lawsuit was laid out and the missing context, where in the lawsuit it would say something and then the text messages didn't match, especially the way they were embedded, it really bothered me too, because it was like you thought that the text next to it was gonna be what was in the lawsuit, and it wasn't. But I have, unpopular opinions on a lot of these cases where, to me, yes, I felt like he might have been inappropriate in some, but in others, it kind of was like he was kind of testing the waters, and it felt like maybe he was trying to sort of have a consensual relationship with him in a way. And then it led to, well, what's the advantage? Because if you think about in regular dating, sometimes there are like quid pro quo style things. It's like, I'll take you out on a date, I'll buy you roses, I'll, do all this stuff. And, some people expect things out of it. Now, is that right? No, because again, Pam brought up a lot of good points about consent, and, saying no and things like that. So for me on that first read, and I haven't reread it since I listened to it with you, but it felt like, we were talking about the hard nose. Did he give a hard no? It not only didn't feel like he gave a hard no, but it felt like he was kind of sticking around and staying in the middle of like, well, what can I get from this? And letting it continue on. And I remember in the chat, I was like, he says he had to go to therapy. He had some sort of PTSD, right? Somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, was the pain of going through that for 5 years to wait to see if your project got made, was that worth the project being made? Like, at what point, and this is what we're discussing today and why the show is called Quid Pro Quo, is at what point is there personal accountability for your part in trying to get someone to, or trying to advance yourself by doing something with someone else? And I know that there's, power plays going on. So we're going to get into all of that stuff. When does, the other person has more power than me and things like that. And throughout the different cases we're going to discuss today, we're going to discuss whether there's a difference when it's men doing it, like Tyler Perry, when it's women doing it, and then when there's minors involved, like with Fat Joe. So yeah, look at Pam. Pam, have you read the Fat Joe lawsuit?
And I mean, when I tell you that I had to stop and start, but I got through it. I was one, when I saw that there were minors, I just didn't want to. I asked if anybody wanted me to do it, and then I thought, no, I'm not going to do it. I can summarize it. It was more than I can. I'm very sensitive about minors, so I was not going to read
and
that
that's
joke.
what changed my view, and why I actually added that at the end is because when I was looking into Christian Keys and Derek, I was like, these are two grown men that, to me, it seems like they were trying to advance themselves. They didn't get what they wanted, and then they came back trying. And Christian really didn't, because to this, we're going to play the video here, but he never really named any names, so we're speculation. Everything is alleged. I need a little bar, like Pam has on her
Allegedly.
channel. Everything is alleged, speculation. And then when Cassie and the Diddy trial and Jane and Cassie testified, I also felt like, okay, with that, I can kind of understand a bit, and, was trying really hard to understand it, because you have things like Stockholm syndrome and, being, in love with somebody and all these other things. So I kind of understood it, but I still was like, was it really, this?
I think
I wasn't too sure, but it wasn't until I saw the minors one with Fat Joe where I was like, okay, now this is something that is actual, coercive and, quid pro quo. Like that for me defined quid pro quo. But the other stuff, it was a little blurry for me. Go ahead, Pam.
I was going to say with the Diddy trial, one of the things I think that is confusing, or I guess more compelling, is the fact that it's not a perfect victim. You know, we when we look at different types of crimes, we as a society have this image of what a perfect victim looks like, and they're not coming across as the perfect victim because they were willing participants in this stuff. But there was a point in time when they didn't want to do it, and then there was a lot of uh well, you know, with Cassie, there was a lot of DV. With Jane Doe, there was a lot of I may or may not pay your bills, or a little love bombing type behaviors, and those types of things. And people will say, "Oh, well, she was grown and she could have done this." Yes. But what happens is with a lot of people who are great manipulators, because we all have a level of manipulation, but people who are great manipulators, before you know it, and the key point is being financially dependent on someone. You look at Jane Doe that does have a child, and she's getting whatever she gets, but you have before you know it, she has switched over to where this man is paying her rent or whatever it is that he's
Uprooted,
doing.
uprooted and left.
Yeah, she uprooted the East Coast, went to the West Coast. And I think she's from the West Coast, but still, she uprooted her lifestyle and way that she was doing her income. And what people are not seeing also, too, I saw that pattern. He did that with Cassie. He gives her a 10 album deal, and then that becomes her income, that becomes her thing. Yes, she was making other money, because I heard someone say, well, she was out there working. Baby, there are people right now who are married to men that make $50,000, and they get their heads knocked between the washer and the dryer, and they still get up and they go to work every day. So all of these things, where again, we look for a lens of a perfect victim instead of looking at the lens of what the reality is and what's going on. If you are involved with a master manipulator, these are the things. And then a master manipulator who has hundreds of millions of dollars at their disposal.
Money, power, and influence.
Exactly.
Okay. Anything you want to add to that, real quick, Tina? Because then we're gonna get into the Tyler Perry and go through each case.
No, because
Slowly, but
I know we're gonna get to Diddy, so I don't want
yeah.
to get into it yet. I agree with everything Pam
Uh,
said.
so, and that's why I wanted Pam here, because she's the other voice on my other shoulder. Like I got the one, and then I got Pam over here as well. And so, I mean, I have other thoughts on that I'll also add here when we get to Diddy, which you kind of covered some of it, which was, like she was working and things like, was she financially dependent? And Laura, my mod, said, and there were so many victims that didn't testify. And so I think for me, like what you said with the victim being compelling, I feel like maybe some of the other victims may have been more compelling, but from what I heard from Jane um and Cassie, to me it just felt like, again, was the pain and all that stuff worth you getting all of those perks? And how hard was it to leave? Because I know that Cassie left to her mom's house one time, and maybe because I don't understand the psychology as much as, when you love someone, how difficult it is to leave. Um, but there's the whole, she got paid money. Like, was that, this is the harm that you did to me. How do you put a price on something like that? Because there's a lot of people who don't seek that type of justice. They go out, they seek therapy, and stuff happens. It was grown folks doing grown folks stuff. So we're gonna get
Well, our
into
trainer, I just want to comment on her. She's right, because I followed this case very closely, motion by motion. They had a lot of other victims they wanted to bring in. Those victims did not correlate to the charges, so the judge would not allow them. But there was at least 4 or 5 other people that they wanted to bring in just to attest to his bad behavior in the past, like other assaults. And that's why I said I think the judge has been very fair. He didn't allow them to just pile on, because it could have been a lot more, at least 5 more other people that I read that could have potentially been in this case. They just did not tie directly into the trafficking and the RICO. They were more so separate, isolated essay cases from Diddy. So
Yeah. Um, I was surprised. I said in my other live earlier today that, they didn't have Audrey O'Day on there because I felt like she had a real compelling case. Let me bring up hold on, I gotta stop that screen. I don't know what I was on that screen for. Let me bring up the first one. So we're gonna get right into Tyler Perry. So for those that don't know, that aren't familiar with the Tyler Perry case, he 2 days ago was just sued for sexual assault by an actor in one of his shows called The Oval, and he claims years of harassment and more. So this is a TMZ article that came out, and this is him. Derek Dixon filed a lawsuit against Perry, and in the docs, he claims he and the director met back at an event in 2019. Tyler picked him out of the crowd and asked for his phone number, suggesting he might have a role for him. And now this reminds me of an interview that I just recently saw in January of Christian Keys, who said how he started with, Tyler found him on a stage show. And so right then and there off the top, when I started reading it, I was like, this sounds familiar already. Like I was already on the side of Derek as I start to read it, because I was like, okay, this sounds like eerily familiar because it's the same MO. And then, so as we continue reading it turns out that he gave him 2 small roles in 2 episodes of a show called Ruthless. And then in January 2020, Derek says Tyler invited him to his Atlanta home. He accepted, hoping to build a friendship that would lead to more acting gigs. So let's focus on this. Build a friendship that would lead to more acting gigs. Do you think that in the beginning, Derek may have wanted some, right there it's saying he was hoping to build a friendship that would lead to more acting gigs, there's also could be quid pro quos in friendships, right? Like, I want to befriend you because you have money, or you have access, or you have, which we'll get into, like the Blake Lively stuff with Taylor Swift and her dragons. Do you think that from the beginning, I know that Tyler's defense is already that this was kind of a setup. What do you think about that line? Let's go with Tina.
So I think when you're dealing with the entertainment business, things get blurred a lot. They get very blurred because it's not a traditional corporate job. You know what I'm saying? So the lines can get blurred from employer to people that you're on set with for months and months and months, and y'all are going out to eat and y'all might go to the club. And so I can see how both of them may have started to blur these lines, where Tyler may have felt like, oh, I do see something in him. He's special. I want to work with him a little closer. And the guy probably said, hey, if he's interested in me, yeah, I'm going to go to his house. I'm going to hang out because, yes, if he likes me, this may help further my career. That happens all the time in entertainment. So it makes sense to me.
What about you, Pam?
Yeah, I agree. And here's the thing: when we talk about, if we're just a regular lay person like you and I, friendship, the word friendship means a little bit more and a little deeper than what it does in a Hollywood setting. Because when I see that friendship, I I more see of building connections, networking, that type of thing when you talk about friendships. And again, people in Hollywood do different things. We are aghast when we hear that Hollywood types would meet up in a hotel room to discuss contracts or discuss all these little different things. For us, we're like, why were you not in an office, situation? But
Yeah.
Hollywood types are different. They meet in all these different places, and it can lead to blurring friendship lines as you visually see it. Like, you have directors and actors that are friends. You have people who do screenplays that might be friends with the grip operator. Those things blur lines, but there is, I don't want to say clear cut, but there is, I guess a hierarchy, but
Mhm,
it's really not, because think of Sandra Bullock. Didn't she marry her grip operator or a director or something, something to that line?
mhm.
It commingles a lot
Um,
in those Hollywood spaces.
so
For sure.
that's a great point, Pam, because it brings me to the next paragraph here. as far as what it's like for a celebrity to, show interest in someone on another level, especially when there is a hierarchy like that. You go into this next paragraph, he says, according to the suit, while there, Derek drank too much and ended up sleeping in a guest room. In the docs obtained by TMZ, Derek claims Tyler got into the bed with him and started touching his thighs. And although he rejected the advances that night, he claims Tyler remained interested. So, do you guys remember? Was it Aziz Ansari or whatever? I think the comedian, where he thought it was just like a mutual date, and he was like going in to kiss, and then later on it was like a Me Too thing or whatever. So, and like you brought up Sandra Bullock with her grip operator, it's like, okay, so here's this billionaire guy. He has some guy come over, they're drinking, and he shoots his shot, right? Because a lot of the times now where there's like consent on top of consent, it's like even if you start kissing someone, which is what happened with Aziz, it was like she gave consent for the kissing, and then when he tried to like go further, it's like you constantly have to be asking and reassuring, like, is this okay now? Is this still okay? Is this still okay? um, which is a sign of the times changing, I guess. But how do you feel that it's like? Is it more difficult for like someone in Tyler's shoes, especially with it not being, and he's not out, right? This is just rumors that he's gay or whatever, but especially with it not being out and things like that, for him to start a relationship. And because I kind of, when I was reading the documents, I was like, he sounds kind of like nerdy a little bit, like there was times where I felt like he was like he just wanted love, like when he's asking for like loyalty and stuff. It's like, imagine being a billionaire. It was that one text, and I'll pull it up here. Let me see if I can pull it up in another the one where he says, I have 600 people on my phone. You know what I'm talking about? And I
Right.
just
Yeah.
I just want to talk about you, or I just want to talk to you. I was like, it must be lonesome to not be able, you know what I mean? Because of that hierarchy, it's like you'd have to get with the billionaire, right? Otherwise it'd be imbalanced.
He just got to
I
get with someone who don't work for him. It's very easy. Just
yeah,
don't. With Tyler Perry is not only the director, he is the owner. Like, so it's like Tyler Perry's not a young guy. If he was 25 years old and he's dating the 19-year-old assistant, I might give him a little, he's new to this. Tyler Perry is 50 something years old. He is not new to the entertainment business. It's just totally inappropriate. He can date anybody he wants to. There's so many available people out with whoever he wants. Why are you zeroing in on your actor? That's just weird to me.
and also too, I think when we read when she goes and she reads these texts, one of the things that interested me is the fact that he wasn't really looking for a relationship, more so than a F buddy. Because the way he was speaking, I want to, I don't want emotions to be involved in this. I just want to do that. And I'm thinking, you can pay for you can pay for that. What but and that's where the power dynamic was getting to me. It was like you were trying to figure out a way to get this young man to acquiesce to what you wanted him to do, and you were giving him these little perks because Hollywood people do things for do little perks and everything. Yes, exactly. And he wanted that person over here on the side. I think, again, as Tina said, there are so many people that are, I don't understand sometimes. I don't know if it's more of you get off on the manipulation part, because there are so many people who will love this lifestyle, whether morally you agree with them or not. But there are people that are willing to do this. Why are you not working towards those people to do this? They make themselves very known that they would participate in this lifestyle. They will participate in this. There's a I know it from young women. There are a lot of women that will participate in this lifestyle. You put me up in the condo that I want, you give me the black card, you give me an allowance, and you come over here and you could be daddy, and we could do all of this. There's a lot of folks that will participate in that, and
Yeah.
I'm just always boggled by, why is it that you want the people who give you the pushback? And that just tells me that it's the thrill of the hunt.
Yeah, and I think that also came up in Jane's testimony in the Diddy case. Y'all remember that, where she texts him, "Why don't you just get prostitutes?" Right? Doesn't she say that to him? Like, why
Yeah,
me? Like, why are you doing this to me?
yeah.
Um, and so I remember
And
she had
with Diddy, it's definitely more so power with him. That it's
Yes.
definitely 1000% power with Diddy for sure. Tyler, I don't understand. I don't know if you've ever watched
look,
the show Pose, but like there was a whole, pretty much storyline about that, about how one of the, people was put up. She was dating a wealthy man who had a wife and kids, but she's put up in the penthouse and they come and visit and date. Like, I just, I don't get it.
and
Why are you going after your new actor?
this is the text that, like, I don't know, and like I said, I'm always like got like that other opinion, but it really, I felt like, dang, was he really trying to connect with him, like on like a I want to date you type thing? Because he says, "Treat myself right. What are you doing?" And he's like, "Derek," and he's like, "Just talking to my sister," and then um Tyler's like, "I roll, fine, good night. I'll go through the 600 people in my phone book and be annoyed that I don't want to talk to any of them." Now, some people say that was like manipulation, some type of like, well, look at all the people I could talk to, but I'm only choosing to talk to you. But when I read it, it felt like a lonely older man who was trying to connect and date a younger guy, who he thought, maybe was into him, um, due to, him coming over and stuff like that they were
TJ,
establishing
he
this
in
friendship.
Atlanta. He can go find the finest, brightest, most open, welcoming. He don't even, he could just go to the club. They gonna come to him.
Yeah. I
If
mean,
he
you need to
throw
get
one
Pam.
party,
This is why we got Pam here. So if
he
y'all
throw
want to
one
go,
party. If he threw one party, he would have 5,864 young that would be willing. He could just put a casting call out and he would find, you see what I'm saying? He
and look, like in this one, it seems like he's just trying to flirt. Like, is he trying to have an authentic? Because when you're a billionaire as well, and I get what you're saying, Pam, okay, but obviously we're here for the discourse so that y'all can, help me process all this. Because part of the reason why I create content and stuff, I've thought about like just quitting a bunch of times, especially with Baldoni and Lively. But part of it is because I get these Roman empires where I'm trying to like figure it out, like in my head, it's like I'm torn, and sometimes talking it out, making content on it helps others, bring you new facts or different ways of seeing it. And
right.
so, again, thanks for, coming on and giving that view. But like in this text, it made me think, like, is he trying to like just flirt? Because I kept thinking, like, okay, if you're a billionaire, yes, you can have sugar babies and stuff, but does that make you feel okay to just be like paying someone to be your friend, or paying someone to be your lover, or paying someone, like, do you want to have that authentic, like, road to a relationship where you guys are just like flirting? And we haven't gotten to the consent part where he's saying no, so I'm not speaking on that. I'm speaking so far where we're at right here, okay?
But it
um
doesn't seem like he wanted a relationship, because he does eventually say, I just want someone that I can put up and take care of and don't have that emotional tie to. So it sounds like he does want a sugar baby, just somebody who I can play with. We send texts, but I don't want to be committed. I ain't got time for no relationship now. And there's so many people who would love to
mhm.
do it. So many people.
And
I
he
would
did
probably
say
do it.
that
I
he
would
wanted
probably do it. I might do it. I might just text Tyler every once in a while. You need a text friend. I'll text you.
You know what? I was looking at this, and this is the things that because again, as I was reading, I noticed that there was some context or stuff like that. So right here, where he says, "Why did that photo make me jealous? You two together." He's on his social media looking at different different things and going on. He's all on his social media looking at
Mhm.
stuff,
I
and
feel like he sprung. Like he's like, and then he's like, thick, like right there, he's like, thick Derek, get that Chipotle. He's trying to flirt. Like it's his attempt at flirting. And, he's like probably sitting somewhere in his bed looking through the Instagram, like, oh, that makes me, I don't know. To me, as I was reading those texts, I felt like loneliness coming out of them.
and
Um,
again, two and three things can be true at the same time. I can believe that he is lonely. I can believe that he works all these different hours because, again, one of the things about, if you're not familiar with Tyler Perry writes all of his stuff. He directs most of his stuff. He is doing he's doing everything. And for someone who does everything, that tells me that you spend a lot of time at work, you spend a lot of time working, and then when you do have those down times, you're looking around and there's nobody there. And if this person showed you an ounce of attention, even if the attention that you received was because of the fact that he wanted to get his pilot done, or he wanted to act, or whatever it was he wanted to do, for someone like that, there you and delusion is not the right word, and I'll come up with the right word, but you look at that relationship, like you look at it like it's a true relationship when it's not. And I know that there's a word for it, but it escapes me right now. But you look at those things, you're making connections where there are no connections. And when I see Thick Derek get the Chipotle and stuff like that, he is making a connection when it doesn't appear like there's a connection.
Mhm.
However, Derek is kind of egging it on because he's like, this is the man right now that I have the attention to, that can get me in acting jobs, that can get me into the right rooms, or people who do screenwriting and stuff like that. This is the person that can do that. So I'm going to egg it on. But again, two and three things could be true at the same time. He's egging it on, maybe not necessarily for uh sex, but he's trying to get secure his position as a friend. And Tyler is misunderstanding that and thinking, oh, he may want a relationship with me. Because and this goes, ladies and gentlemen, when you know that this is something that you don't, stop engaging in it. you know Texting
Mhm.
each other with stuff like that, there should have been, hey, let's have conversations about such and such and such. And then, because just, it's my generation, we don't like to leave paper trails, and this
You said it on your live. You were like, and that's what we said about Diddy too. He was sending voice recordings, and you're a billionaire. We saw Elon Musk when he got, that one girl pregnant, where he thought it was disappearing messages. She had a second phone that was screenshotting the disappearing messages. So it's like, if you're not like, I don't even know what you would do in that situation, like face to face, and you got Christian Keys using pens. So it's like, it's not safe. It is not safe at all, when you have money and things like that, because your communications can at any point be given to TMZ. So we're going to continue. If you guys want to see the rest of those texts, it's in that TMZ article, and then I'm going to put up the actual thing that we were talking about, where it kind of gave us pause. That let me stop the screen. Sorry. Um, where the text messages weren't adding up in the so he would share. So I'm going to pull that up real quick so we can get through the text. But in paragraph 114, it says Perry would also share intimate details of his own S life with Dixon. Among other things, Perry would tell Dixon that he had not had good sex since he became rich, and that there were certain times where he had not been touched in months. So again, that's why I don't know, like, if it's just the way that I was reading it with the text message and stuff. But again, that goes to what I was saying, where he was feeling lonely. But was that a manipulation tactic, or was that oh, so this one actually does say I haven't been touched in months. So that was the wrong one. Hold on. There was another one where it was like um it said something about, like, he showed pictures of his butt, and then it had some like random. Oh yeah, Perry also photographed Dixon's buttocks while on set and then sent him pictures. So I would have thought you're embedding the pictures here, right?
Right, right.
And then there was another one. There was a couple where it was like, and it really bothered me how they were embedded like this. Like, normally it like shows the paragraph and then the text is in its own. Was it this one? Um,
And
th-
that even looks weird, that text message, that whole cancel
this
button
one,
up there. It it feels like,
and
I don't
some
know.
of them
That's
are dated and some of them don't. So
yeah.
Yeah, some of them
Sam
have
pointed
dates.
that out, that this
Yeah.
one says April, And there are
What
some of
was
them
the
got
year? Do we
away
have a
with.
year for that?
Yeah, 2021.
When did the Me Too movement really just boom? When did it hit? Was it Cosby or was it Weinstein? What year was that? Because I think that'll give us more context around this.
2018, 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's 2018.
Yeah.
Because if
2017, end of October 2017. And that was with Alyssa Milano was the one who started the hashtag Me Too movement.
okay,
But it
and
actually
then
started with Tarana Burke.
yeah.
That was in
Side
Yeah.
note, this
2007.
little fun fact: Tarana Burke and I were in the master's class for public administration at
Ah.
Harvard
What?
University of Montgomery. Yes. Anyway, just keep going.
I want to do
Because
an episode. You
the
guys,
reason let me tell you the
yes.
reason I asked. The reason I asked that is because it seems like for my memory, it seems like it kind of really burst kind of big about 2018, 2019. So if he has these texts from 2020, 2021, a lot of people say they feel like he was setting Tyler up. But for me, I just feel like we were aware of Me Too, but I don't think people had gotten hip enough to like, okay, now I'm, especially men, like, okay, now I'm going to start setting people up. So it just seems like to me, Tyler's just kind of in the wrong for this. I can't see this guy like in 2020 saying, I'm about to set Tyler Perry up.
I wouldn't see it in 2020, but I will tell you 2023.
Yes.
When he jumped on his JetBlue flight to California.
Yes.
Because again, I think initially it was, hey, I'm trying to get this done. This is the man that's going to help me get this done. And that's why I was saying after the second time that he went over, because after the first time, you already know why he's calling you. You understand what I'm saying? After the first time you go over there, you know why he's calling you over there for. Because don't nothing go on at night. There's nothing good going on. There's nothing going on at night like that where you're going over because you already got drunk. And he's making sure he's plying you with liquor, not where he's like being malicious with it, but you drink, he drinks. He's just making sure that your drinks are strong. And you're too drunk to even drive home. And Uber was around. When did Uber get around? Because there was a way that
It was definitely in 2020 Uber was around. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm quite sure that it was in Atlanta, and particularly in the area where Tyler Perry lives out in that way. Like I said, I don't believe that was the initial thing. But however, when he saw that this man is a lonely man and I can get what I need to get, but just in case things don't pan out, or just in case when things don't, I've got all of this evidence that to do it. Tyler Perry's problem is the fact that you were his employer, and you can't do that as as employer. Again, if you needed a sugar baby, then you definitely
could have hit up Tina.
You just
I would have been his friend. I got homies. We could have a party.
And won't say a word. Just be just as calm and be just as fun.
Sure. Look, I know people in Atlanta. We could go hang out.
There was two paragraphs to me that I know, and I keep going back being like the devil's advocate, but that's part of what I'm trying to work through. So paragraph 180, there was two paragraphs that to me felt like it was a setup. December 2023, this is where Christian Keys comes in. Another actor who worked for Perry prior to Dixon's employment posted a video to social media that he had abusive experiences with a Black Hollywood billionaire, right? He heard Mr. Keys' account and saw that Perry had been engaging in the same conduct as other actors. And, the interactions described by Keys were familiar, basically, because it was the same thing when I read it too. I was like, oh, that sounds exactly like what he had said. But did the lawsuit, when they built this lawsuit, did it surround the story of Keys? That's another thing that you have to think about. Keys' story came out first. Like, is the reason why it resonated so much with us, like, he grabbed him on the buttocks, he got drunk, he climbed into bed. Was that because he had already heard it through Keys' account? And this basically was like, oh, he's doing it again. So that was one of my thoughts there. And then this other paragraph right here where it said, it says, it was only then that Dixon woke up and realized that Perry was never going to be serious about helping Dixon. So it was only then that you decided, okay, I'm not gonna, fake flirt. Or, I mean, he never really flirted back with him, but he kind of like never really, like, in the text message, as far as I could read, he kind of, like you said, egged it on a little bit. So those two sentences or paragraphs to me were like, says Perry was only going to do things for Dixon if Dixon played along with his sexual harassment and assault. And then it says Perry was only interested in preventing Dixon from exposing him, and he only cared that people still view him as the victim he once was, even though now he was the victimizer. And Dixon became sick to his stomach. But, and that goes into psychology, which, what we're talking about, of the psychology of how long do you hang around, and is there like the Stockholm syndrome type of stuff with men too? Like, because this wasn't like a thing with Cassie and Jane where they were in love with Diddy, right? Dixon wasn't in love with Tyler Perry, right? He didn't have any affection towards him based on the lawsuit, right?
Yeah, because
So,
he was passing, he was freezing up like a baby goat when Tyler Perry came up around him, according to what the lawsuit was saying. He was just
mhm,
like, he called himself just freezing every time he came or he did anything. I would say, and this, first of all, I don't know these people. These people don't know me. All my
mhm,
opinions are just that, opinions. So what I'm going to say is alleged. Uh, Christian Keys and Derek Dixon, their information, because like Tina said, there has been stuff that has been rumbling in regards to Tyler Perry rumors. uh I go back to 2008, 2009. I go back to where he was doing plays, and he was having there were rumblings about things in the back of the plays and stuff. But I would say it in regards to Christian Keys and in regards to Derek, and I said it because Tina was on the live the other time. They also could have gotten this information from that Boondocks episode, because that Boondocks
mhm.
episode that came out, or where
Yeah, I
that
can
Tyler
say
Perry
that.
did had them to like take it down, but it's, you can find it on YouTube. That episode too parallels what they're saying. I'm not saying that these people are not telling the truth, but I'm just saying the episode is there, and it parallels what Christian says, it parallels what Derek says. And I don't mean like it just it if you watch it, you'll see that it parallels a lot of information. But I will say, I would agree at one point, uh again, I just think trying to get my words right. I think initially he was going along to get along because he was trying to get certain deals put into place. He knew he wasn't going to go any further than, hey, having drinks with him or anything like that. I think that there should have been a statement to that, but that still does not excuse Tyler doing this, and this man is employed with him. He's an employee, and he's not, for me, he's not getting around that part. There, I don't think anybody is going to be able to get around the fact that he was an employee. Had he allowed this man to come into his life and he still be employed by the catering business in Atlanta, that would have been totally, that's a whole total different thing. He could have worked with him to write stuff. He could have worked with all those different things. But as soon as you employed him in Ruthless, as soon as you employed him as the in the Oval, and then you were giving him more pay, but not letting, but you're not supposed to be discussing your salary with your coworkers anyway. But anyway, he was giving him more pay, and he's texting him, don't let anybody know. He's and what really got me was, because there was a pivotal point in time where the characters all got pew-pewed, and he was saying, hey, I have control of whether or not these people come back or not. And he's telling him this, and then he tells him, oh, but don't you worry, you're safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
it's now come
So
back
it's
to
gonna be interesting how they're gonna play it out, because you brought up that it's a California government code, employment code, which
right.
is their business relationship. So no matter what, all of that other stuff, sure, he may not have ended it right away, but
Right.
you're going back to the California employment code, the quid
Right.
pro quo.
Because morally, you morally, it's like, I have a suspicion. I think the guy was like I said, he saw a sucker, and he took a lick, and he just really just went through there and was kind of gathering evidence. However, had Tyler Perry not hired this man, then I don't. But morally, I think that there, like I said, two and three things could be true at the same time. I think morally, he kind of egged Tyler Perry on. However, he was still an employee, and you can't do that as an employee.
So
Employer.
legally, it was still considered quid pro quo. I'm gonna play this, and then I'm gonna go to Tina on her thoughts on because she said she had already heard rumors for 10 years and stuff. So I want to hear her thoughts on this. I'm gonna play this real quick for
This episode titled Pause was removed from television, and evidence points to it was because it upset Tyler Perry. The episode features Winston Jerome, who is a parody of Tyler Perry and his Medea franchise. Winston Jerome presents his works for Christians and how he does all of this for Jesus Christ, but that's just a front. The truth is that he's the leader of a cult, and it's a way for him to indulge in homosexuality, since he's able to cross-dress, surround himself with attractive men, and in some cases kiss them. Rumors circulated that Tyler Perry threatened to sue Aaron McGruder, the creator of the Boondocks, but Tyler Perry has denied this. Rumors from an insider said that Tyler Perry contacted Turner Broadcasting, which owns the Boondocks, and they said Tyler Perry complained loudly about the episode, and even threatened to rethink his relationship with the company. After that, the episode had disappeared from broadcasting. The Boondocks episode.
Okay, so that was that episode that was allegedly about him, but there is a video where a producer went on some kind of channel that where he did verify and say that that it was about him, right? I remember seeing that video. I didn't have it queued up. I don't know why. I thought I had copied and pasted it into the doc, but what do you think about the rumors? And like Pam said, they could have gotten it from the Boondocks episode and set it all up, and Christian could have gotten it from the Boondocks episode, because a lot of people end up saying that the reason why Christian didn't name names is because there may have been a payout. And we'll play his video as well too here, but let me know what you think, because there was a point where he's like, we need to talk. I got a pen, I got recordings in that live, and I'm not sure if it's the ones that I queued up, but let me know what you think about how it's been rumored going around for years, and it's gone on deaf ears.
I have such a love-hate relationship with Tyler and Diddy, because especially Diddy, I have a love-hate relationship with him. Tyler in particular, me and Tyler's teams have crossed paths. Pam probably knows this. I've said this a lot. Like, one of my first jobs was in like movie distribution. So I was around when Tyler was transitioning from plays to movies, and he was really beating down doors trying to get somebody to help him fund this dream. So for him to say, forget it, I'm just going to do it on my own, and I'm going to make this happen, that has always been so inspiring to me, because I've seen doors closed in his face, and for him to come out on this side, I'm like, yeah, Tyler, you did it. But this has always been like talked about. It's kind of like with Diddy or everybody, all these other controversial figures. Like, we've heard all of these things. Like, some of these things are not new. The Boondocks did not create that out of nowhere. It's come from somewhere. So the LGBT community is about like the Black entertainment industry. It is very small. It is very small. Everybody knows everybody. I'm in the South. I'm in the Atlanta area. I'm in the Florida area. So none of this is new. None of this is new. Christian Keys is not the first. This guy is not the first. Probably won't be the last.
Do you think that people are going to jump on like, Tony Busby type of Diddy's, like all of a sudden all these people going to jump on?
Look, I'm surprised this one got out because my opinion is Tyler has already taken care of people. So I was surprised for this one to even bubble up. I'm like, oh wow, like rumors are he usually go ahead and make sure this stuff is squared away before it get out because these
Yeah,
are
how
not.
much is he asking for?
No,
260 million.
To a billionaire? Is that pocket change?
I wouldn't pay that.
I
I
know.
definitely. He might get about
That
5
ain't
out of me. I give you 5. You get 5.
I would see. I would say he may get 20 because 260 million dollars. What? How
That's
many?
a bit. That's a
That's a
quarter
bit
of
steep.
my. Yeah.
That's a
Cassie ain't
bit
even get
steep.
that. Nah.
No.
You might get
But,
5 out
I
of me.
mean, is it worth it for him to have paid the 260? Like, do we even know if he approached him or not? But would
Yes,
it have
he's
been
been
worth it to
approached.
pay the 260 and then just make more money? Because obviously he's got the #1 movie on Netflix with Straw, and that's
Mhm.
another thing. It's like the timing too. It's like there's a lot of people who are, of the thought that, these black men are being taken down. We got Diddy, and it's hip hop legends. We got Fat Joe now, who's another hip hop legend.
But some of these
There's
people know what they be doing though. That be the thing. There's a
Yeah.
lot of black millionaires and billionaires that just don't get in trouble. They get a wife, they get some kids, they sit down somewhere, they flip their real estate. You don't hear nothing about these folks.
Mhm.
Tyler Perry, the Tyler Perrys, the Diddy's, they just have so much power and they've been able to get away with certain things for so long. Like I said, around 2020, Tyler's probably not thinking that what I'm doing is wrong or this might flare up somewhere. I don't think that it's on Tyler. It's just going to always be on him, like Pam said, because you are the employer. You are the employer. And I do think Tyler probably texts everybody like this. Probably even some of his women counterparts. Hey, how you doing? Hope the sun's good. You look great. I saw you on Instagram. That seems like his personality, that he reaches out to people. But it starts to get a little weird when you start bringing the sexual innuendo into it with the men. Now, if women start coming out saying, yeah, well, he texts me like this too,
Mhm.
then it's like, you still wrong. Don't text your employees this stuff.
And so here's the first cause of action, which is what we're talking about today, which is quid pro quo sexual harassment. And so now this is in the it says Gov Code 12940J. So this must be some kind of California code, which prevents you using as leverage employment opportunities or job benefits, opportunities for continued work, additional pay, or other favorable working conditions, contingent with giving up sexual advances and conduct. And I'm gonna have to look it up because we are gonna play it as when we do end the stream. The Joe Rogan clip, when he's talking about Harvey Weinstein, and he's talking about how back in the day, that's just like what happened in Hollywood. Like it was average casting couch. And now, as the times are shifting, we're putting more of a, like you said, the Me Too movement and all that stuff. We're putting more of a microscope on it and being like, well, no, that's not right. You shouldn't do that. But I think for me, and the thing that I can't grasp is like, at what point is the other person held accountable for taking it, like,
They're
because
not, because
there's a
he's the
point where
boss. No matter what, he's the boss.
if you say no, you can go and get another job. You can go and like do all that stuff. But if you're egging it on, because that's how I feel like, okay, if somebody, let's say Tyler Perry said, the first time that they got drunk, he touched his thigh. If he right away would have filed something with the union, SAG, whoever, at that point, I believe he was already employed by him right away, right? If you weren't hanging around for 4 years to try and get more and more and more, it's like, are these actors and people who are taking advantage of it creating a bigger problem? Because would this still be done if people went right away to their union and reported it and didn't try to get something from it? You get what I mean?
Think about this as, let's take any like sexual innuendo out of it. Let's say you're working at Burger King as a cashier and your manager comes up to you and touches you on the back and say, hey, your hair looks nice today. Yeah, you should report it. You should. But if you come to me as your friend and was like, girl, like he touched me, it was a little weird, what I'm gonna tell you is start keeping receipts. I'm not going to tell you to go tell nobody right now, because as soon as you tell them, you're going to look like the person who's wrong and you're out the door. So I think anybody that's in corporate America or in any of these type of situations, you better keep your receipts, because that helps your case, point blank, period. And that's why it's always on the person with more power to not do these things. So that's why I'm not going to ever say like, oh, the victim should have left. No, I'm going to sit here and unless it's like violent, you know what I'm saying? But if you keep making passes at me, I'm getting all my receipts. Yep. Because you shouldn't be doing it.
But I
Yep.
had said in Pam's thing, like there's other ways to Hollywood. You got 50 Cent's Atlanta studio, right? You got other people who aren't doing this kind of stuff. It's like, at what point
We don't know.
And
well,
that,
you don't know. Oh, is 50 gonna?
I'm just saying we don't know.
Fat Joe's case, but I'm just saying there may be other methods that you could get into Hollywood without Tyler Perry. You know, I mean, I'm sure that.
Well, remember I told you, CJ, this is a very small community. Everybody knows everybody. It is very small.
You know, I can tell you there are a lot of, you know, how the best way that I can say it is like in the music business. There are a lot of women singers, and there probably are a handful that we see. And because the way this business is, and people, let's get back on just being regular, but now that you're somebody that has power, there are a lot of women artists that are no longer singing, no longer in the business, no longer in the thing, not because of the fact that they told. It is also in the fact that since they told, people, whether we realize that people have done it one time, whether they haven't done it, but they watch somebody else do it, once that person tells, they are blackballed throughout the whole music industry. And so you have to weigh those things. Like Tina said, get your evidence first. You know, keep your safety. I'm not advocating anybody to get, let's not try to be like Scooby-Doo or Nancy Drew or anybody like that. But you get your evidence, however you need to do to get your evidence, as long as you could do that and be safe with it. Because again, people who are in power and people who have a lot of money truly don't like to be parted from it. And you want to make sure that you're just as safe as you can be when you're trying to gather this evidence. Like I said, had he gathered up to the point, so from 2020 to 2023, he had enough evidence that he could have gone to wherever it was that he needed to go and say something. However, when he said that he moved from Atlanta to California in 2023, and there is a law on here about in 2023, I can't think of it right now, it escapes me, but it's supposed to be able to expand the time period in which you can file a complaint. Mm-hmm. And so he waited to 2023 to make sure that he was in this time frame, because I think it's like from the time that you can file from, I guess, back further is from January 2023 through December 2026. So there's a 3-year window. So it doesn't matter how far it goes back. You could go ahead and file. When he decided to move to California in 2023, that let me know that he knew something. And that let me know that hey, all that stuff that happened in 2018 or 20, whatever it was, I can use that. It's not too far back. I like I said, I think that if he was initially, I think he saw that this could possibly, I'm sorry, he has it with this quid pro quo. I'm just wondering how much money does he believe that Tyler Perry is going to get or was going to give him in regards to that, or the company. I don't know, because I'm learning so much about these companies and these things about the insurance that executives have and on each other, that these kind of lawsuits trigger these insurance policies, and with these triggering of these certain types of insurance policy. What is her name? Attorney Simone
Redwine.
Yeah, Attorney
I did a stream with her. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she did it. She has
her too. If y'all aren't following her,
yeah, she's great.
Follow. Mm-hmm.
But you know what, Pam? I'm a little gray on the quid pro quo. I don't know if the quid pro quo is so explicit, but I think the sexual harassment is 100% like, if those texts are real, like that you can't fight that. You cannot
Right.
fight that. The quid pro
So
quo was a little gray to me.
how many causes of actions? He's got work environment harassment. That seems like he was at work and he was being harassed. He's got
That's taking the
uh,
pictures while he's
here's
at
the
work.
sexual harassment that you're talking about, Tina. This is third cause of action.
Wait a minute, hold up. Stop there. Go back up to that right there. Go
Uh-huh.
back up. It says sexual harassment in a defined relationship.
I think it's saying
Is that the work relationship?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, because I
I was
mean,
gonna
they're
say.
gonna try and paint it as, maybe it was like workplace gender violence in violation. So because he was a man, I mean, gender violence. Maybe because he was a gay man, because he kept saying,
No, the gender violence could be anyone as long as there's just violence from gender to gender. It doesn't
okay,
have to be like, because
um,
Cassie's lawsuit was filed under the New York Gender Violence Act thing.
what you went over this Bain Act, didn't you, on your stream? Pam?
I did, and don't get me
You
to remember because it was
go
it,
over to her channel.
it was the Bain Act and the Ralph Act.
She breaks down all the legal terms, which is why I I had originally played it because I was gonna fall asleep to it, and then I was like, this is a lot of info and it's so interesting, so I ended up watching it all the way through. It's a good watch. So you guys can head over there. Let's see, what was the other one? It was sexual battery. We got
the sexual battery is kind of iffy because we don't have no proof of that.
Negligent hiring, supervision or retention of an employee. Basically, he was kind of saying he's keeping him against his will there through.
But here's the thing about the battery. In California, it's so loose. I learned this from the ASAP Rocky trial.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's loose because battery in California is if I do you like that. That's so if I'm talking to you and stuff like if I'm talking to you and so I he may have something. I have to go back through those text messages, but continue. It's very loose from what I understand over there in California.
All right, sorry y'all. I had to go get a charger because I wasn't super prepared, but I'm plugging it in now. So hold on one second. Okay, there we go. So there was intentional infliction of emotional distress, retaliation. Which the retaliation, I mean, how did he? Oh, it says because he's saying that the retaliation was him not being in the Oval, and he was expected to be making 400,000. So he's got 10 causes of actions there.
Yeah. I think he'll get about 8 out of the 10. I don't know about the quid pro quo. I don't know about the battery, but them other ones he could. If those texts are real, I'm gonna have to keep saying that. If those texts are real.
So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and move into the other one. I was gonna play Christian Keys, but because it's so long and that was my fault. I didn't timestamp it. But just to summarize what Christian Keys had said is it was similar to all this stuff. It was, that he was taken advantage of by a billionaire. And that's the thing that bothered me is when he said that he had used pens and keychains to record conversations and things like that. Because at that point, it feels like a setup. Like it no longer feels like, I mean, I get what you're saying about I need my receipts. I need him to say it on camera. But anytime for me, when you're trying to get money for an experience, because for me, I guess my mentality, justice is more like, let's get this to a core. And I get that sometimes criminally you can't really do much, because he said that he tried to go to the police, right? Or he sat outside the police station and he couldn't go in.
Right.
And like you said, Hollywood's very small. Some people say that the LAPD could be compromised and things. So you start to get scared when you're dealing with billionaires, right? Because who knows what kind of access they have. So I do get that. But at the same time, the pen thing, it just stirred me wrong. And the same thing with Derek's thing. It was like the gathering of receipts. I get it because then no one's going to believe you type of thing. But it almost feels like you know, and I'm gonna say allegedly in my speculation or whatever, it almost feels like extortion at that point. Like, you know, this is what you did to me and I deserve, like, almost like revenge a little bit more. But like
But
I
this
said,
is
Yeah.
the reason. Let me
I
tell you
tried
the
to,
reason why I'm so pro lawsuit, because I remember doing the R. Kelly trial, and that was one of the first cases that I remember that floods of lawsuits just started coming in. And everybody was so critical of them, saying, if you really care about justice, you need to go to the police. Why are you sue? Blah, 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 blah. Once that R. Kelly case ended and he's off to jail, nobody supported those girls' musics. Nobody bought their books. So I am pro. You need to get your money, because when it's all said and done, either this person goes to jail and you don't get nothing, or they don't go to jail. And like Pam says, you are blackballed. You can never work in the industry that you want to work with. You lose no matter what. You're going to lose
Right.
either way it goes. So you do need to have some type of financial compensation just to be like, I at least got something tangible. That's just
Right.
where I've always stood. People supported Azriel Kelly so much. Take him down, take him down, take him down. And when she took him down, nobody supporting her music. Y'all not going to her shows. And now she's just like, now I got to figure it out. So I'm pro sue and get your receipts. Keep them. Now, don't set nobody up. I think it's a difference when I'm like, oh, I'm finna try to, push up on Pam and get these text messages, and I'm like coming after her. These situations are different. These are people coming after them, and they're just keeping everything. Like,
Right.
oh, okay, I see. So
yeah, I see that as well. I get where you're coming from with that. So it's almost like it's such a fine line, and that's why, you know, it becomes my Roman Empire, because it's like what Pam said earlier, like two or three things can be right at the same time. It's like you can, you know, you are, that civil lawsuits are for that, for compensation for pain and suffering, right? But at the same time, you know, there are people who take advantage of that to, you know, get money out of people who have money, right?
yes,
That's true.
yes,
That's
yeah.
true.
Um,
And I would say, even with Christian Keys and the pens, if I can remember that long thing, he was talking about that it had happened over a period of time, and I guess he needed proof to show that this was what was happening.
And I
Particularly,
think and Pam, I think I remember him saying something like Tyler was like, no cell phones. Like, he wouldn't let him have his cell phone around for fear of being recorded. So he had to find another way to do it. So
yeah.
mm, but was he rightfully paranoid at that point, or was he paranoid because he was up to no good, right?
he's paranoid because he's up to no good. Like, what? Leave this man alone. Leave your employees alone. I just don't get it.
Before we get into Fat Joe real quick, I'm going to skip over to the woman factor, because Tyler Perry was connected to Oprah in this, because I want y'all's opinion when it's on the other shoe. So we have this Monique situation. Do y'all remember this Monique situation? Let me bring it up. Where Monique was asked to go and do an international film press tour for the film Precious, correct?
Right.
And while I'm talking, I'm going to pull it up. Sorry about that, guys. And she refused to do it because she says it's not in my contract, right? And they were like, well, these are the perks. You get to travel, you get to go, you know, here internationally. You should feel pretty much saying that she, you know, she should take it because, you know, she had this opportunity, you should take it. But she's like, I'm not going to do something that I'm not going to get paid for, right? And so she was offered these perks of like traveling and things like that, but she was like, no, I'm going to do this. And then she ended up getting blacklisted. And let me pull it up. In the industry, like what you were talking about, when, you know, you do something against billionaires and stuff. So it's like, and she accused, and this is all alleged, she accused Oprah of being involved in something like this. And Oprah is also someone who allegedly has flung around her power and perks to get stuff out of people. Not necessarily that this is an SH situation, but just in general to get, you know, people to accommodate her, or, you know, things like that. So here's the article. Monique doubles down on claims that she was blackballed, saying that she had audio from him. So how is it different, do you think, when a woman comes for another woman, or tries to, you know, power play? Because we're not just talking about quid pro quos in the sense of SA, but we're talking also about like, if you do this for me, then you get this advantage. And if you don't do it, then we're blackballing you.
And what that in my opinion was clear cut. You know, they saw the momentum with Precious, and they wanted to be able to take that momentum overseas. They wanted to do all of these different things, but they thought that how's the best way? They thought Monique was somebody else. And what I mean by that is they thought that they could just, because they were Oprah and Tyler and I can't think of what the director's name is.
I think
They
it was
thought
Lee
that they could
Daniels.
Lee Daniels. They thought that they could talk to her some kind of way and she was going to respond another way. But you're talking about somebody at that particular time, and she says it all the time. I did it as a favor to my friend Lee Daniels. I did this movie. I was only paid this amount of money, which was peanuts, if you really ask me. And she did the show. That's what she did, what she was contractually obligated to think. It was only after that buzz came for Precious, and they're like, oh well, because again, initially they weren't even talking about paying her money for the flights and stuff like that. They're like, well, you just need to come on because it's the Cannes Film Festival and everybody wants to go to Cannes Film Festival.
You get exposure. You get
exposure. But it's like, no, because quiet as it's kept and loud as I'm about to say it, there are people who get paid to go to these different places, or their travel is paid and their hotel accommodations are paid. They may not pay them to think, but they pay for their travel. They pay for their hotel accommodation. She's talking at this point in time in our community. Monique was doing a lot of stuff. She had her own talk show. She was doing other movies. She had her own little lane. She did that little movie for, what was it, less than $100,000,
like 20,000 or 50,000, something like that.
And they wanted her to do something that she was truly not contractually obligated to do. And if they wanted her to do it, they should have paid for her travel. They should have paid for her apartment, a hotel. They should have paid for her makeup, which would have been much cheaper. But once someone told them, no, you're talking about a very good comedian that they blackball. She wins the Oscar, because usually when people win the Oscar, they then have plum pick of roles. They blackball her. Tyler Perry, when in the recording says, I was the one that said that you were difficult to work with. Why would you do that? But he's supposed to be this big champion for Black women. Why would you blackball this woman, because she told y'all no?
And back to because Tyler Perry was obviously involved, but back to Oprah, Tina, what do you think is like? Do you think it's different when a woman has power play? Because it's like, this whole thing like that's a strong woman, that's a powerful woman. She, there's this whole idea.
It's more insidious.
And when a woman does that to another woman, offering perks and things like that, and then blackballing after the fact, because Oprah's somebody who's really big, and again, this is all alleged, but she never really, I felt like, faced a lot of backlash for all the industry rumors, and of course nothing's ever been proven. No one's ever brought anything like this, so I'm not trying to compare it to this, but we were also covering perks on the show, perks in the Hollywood industry, exchange for, like we said, she was like, oh, you get exposure, but being underpaid and things like that. We're going to get into, well, let me hear what you have to say, Tina, whether, do you believe that is different for women than for men?
No, I don't think it's different. This case, this situation is a little different. And I'm always so up the middle on this, because there's really no right or wrong answer on what Monique could have done. I mean, I'm from the vein of, if they're going to pay for your travel, Monique, just go do it. But I'm also of the vein of, I'm the type of person where if I didn't sign up for this, I might really just don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. But I also understand from a studio point of view, they're looking at it as, we just need you out here for a week. No, we're not going to pay. We're going to take care of your room and board. We in their mind, they think they're helping her. Like, we really want to get you out there. We're doing this for you. We're doing this for you. And she's more so like, I don't want to do it. I would like to get paid for my time. So this situation has always been so gray for me. I don't know who's right. They're definitely wrong for blackballing her and for putting that
Humor.
stigma over her that if you work with Monique, she is going to be difficult to work with. And that's kind of like an open thing too. This isn't just an Oprah Tyler Perry thing. A lot of people have talked about her husband and them having these unorthodox requests. They wanted to get her on Vlad TV, and Vlad was like, they wanted to have rights to his streaming, and sometimes they have these crazy requests. But the Monique thing is unfortunate, but I don't know. I'm kind of up the middle on that one.
So
And the reason I'm up the middle is because this happens a lot where they don't pay for press. We talk about a lot, especially me and Pam, how the Black Panther cast was severely underpaid, how the movie was supposed to not reach the heights that it did, but they sucked it up and said, listen, we finna go out here and we finna do what we got to do to make this movie as big as possible. No, we not getting paid right. No, they're not treating us how we should, but we finna do it. So it's like, do you go with that route or do you go with the Monique route of I'm just clocking in, I'm clocking out, I'm done. I don't care. So it's tough for me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that it's, you know, kind of a blurry gray area, but I found it interesting and why I brought it on this, which, you know, I know it was like a crazy transition. We went from like SA into this, but it's because we're also talking about like the perks in Hollywood and how people use their status as leverage constantly. And we're going to get into the case of Blake Lively. I cover Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, and we know there's a whole I have some videos on it on my channel, and if you follow me on X, I have a bunch of threads on the whole lawsuit. But just to summarize it, Baldoni claims that she took over the film, and she claims that he SH'd her, and he claims that no, that never occurred, that she used that to take over the film. So it's a whole gray area, and it's not what I'm bringing up right now, but there is kind of like a little side quest in that trial where when all this happened, where Blake Lively was getting, you know, this backlash from the press and things like that, there was a co-star named Brandon Sklenar who put out several statements in support of her. And at the time, you know, people thought this was organic or whatever, but most recently we've learned through Baldoni's lawsuit and his amended complaint that, you know, her and Ryan were asking him to sign statements that they wrote up to put out. And we're kind of sending text messages to him saying, you know, this is how we work. You know, we work mafia style. You can use my husband's Maximum Effort PR company. We work, you know, I'm friends with Taylor. Taylor's my dragon. Taylor and Ryan are my dragons, you know. And it was kind of like it seems from the lawsuit that she's kind of offering perks, right? We have this marketing company. We have Taylor Swift's fame. We have all this stuff. And when Baldoni was, you know, not as receptive as she thought, right? Because there's something in the lawsuit where it says, that she wanted to rewrite the script and rewrite the rooftop scene. Well, come to find out later on in an interview she gives in the red carpet, her husband is the one who wrote it. But at the time she was telling Baldoni, like, you know, you should let me write it. Nobody else lets me write. All these directors don't let me write. I never get credit for my writing. And then come to find out that that it was her husband who had wrote it, and she was trying to get her husband's script into the movie. Which I found like it was kind of like manipulative language when it didn't work out, that, you know, he fell for the Taylor Swift thing. But anyways, fast forward to the Brandon Sklenar thing, we later realized that, and I'm going to pull it up here, that he ended up getting a ton of job opportunities, and he's a kind of small time actor. He was in Yellowstone before this, but then this was the first movie he's ever gotten. And it came out through her director at an interview through Another Simple Favor that, and here it is, that Blake Lively had actually helped him, how Blake Lively helped Brendan Sklenar score the housemaid role after It Ends With Us. And there's a thread on my X where I sleuthed it out, and all the movies that he has coming up are adjacent to, and it's a small world in Hollywood. So again, this is all alleged and it could just be a small world, but this kind of I had the thread since February. This came out in May. So to me, it was like, okay, maybe my theory has legs because now we're verifying that um, Blake was the reason he got this. And so the theory is that, there's actors in Hollywood and stuff that use their leverage, such as, being able to get jobs. She's, great friends with Paul Feig, that director. The theory is that this is why he came out in support of her with that statement was kind of like, I'm going to get you jobs, you're going to get opportunities, you just stick with me.
Right.
And as a woman, it's not right now, everyone's focused on, the SH claims. And there are people who are Team Baldoni that are speaking out and stuff on his behalf. But I guess my question is, when women like Blake Lively have that power, she had Taylor Swift as her dragon. She had, Maximum Effort as the PR company with Ryan, and Ryan has ties to Disney. WME Ari Emanuel actually came out and said that the reason why he fired Baldoni, he was Baldoni's agent. He said it's because I'm ride or die for Blake and Ryan.
Right.
He never said it was because he sexually harassed or anything. He just said it was a terrible story, but I'm ride and die for them. So the question is, what, again, to the, when it's a woman, why are we not talking about when a woman leverages power? Because a lot of people are saying that Baldoni was the one who had the most power because Wayfair was co-owned by billionaire Steve Sarowitz. But when it comes to money, it's one thing. But when it comes to industry power, which is what we're talking about, industry power and perks, her and Ryan had more power. So anybody want to chime in?
I think that has to do with society on a whole, of how people view women as the weaker vessel, so therefore that be able to do certain things. And I think she counted on that. She counted on the fact, she comes across sometimes as a like she's like a fourth of a bit clueless. But her wheels are turning and she's trying to be conniving. But her problem is that she always tells on herself. She's not as her conniving level and her brightness level don't seem to want to match up all the time, because she ends up telling on herself. And I think a lot of times people look at that and they kind of give you that attitude like, oh, that's cute. But she's literally, as far as I'm concerned, again, I don't know these people. I wouldn't dare. If these are just my opinions, it's allegedly. I think that she used her feminine wiles to try to get, when she saw that she had snookered him in regards to, no one lets me write and I have all of these ideas and nobody lets me put them out. Then he lets you do the wardrobe and then you get the bad feedback that you look a hot mess. Then it's like, oh, well, I just want to see the dailies and if this, and then my issue, and I'm like Tina on this issue, like she was with the Monique issue. My issue with Baldoni was the fact that he just wasn't a person who he was going to direct or he was going to act. And I think that because he was doing them both, he got caught up in this quote unquote creative process. And she was using that to be able to finagle her way in to take over the show, in which she did. And when things didn't turn out, when the press didn't turn out the way she wanted it to turn out, then we got the SH problems and stuff like that. Because after they had that meeting in January, she said, oh, I didn't have any more problems. Things went well. I didn't have any more problems. But you could tell that there were different problems. You could tell that there was something going on. And I just think she knew the leverage her husband had. She knew the leverage that she had because through her husband, they have all kinds of great Hollywood connections. And she felt like if she put this out there, she thought that everybody was going to pin on her side, and he wasn't going to fight back because he's the little wannabe director, the little actor that could, and the little wannabe director, and
Well,
she was going to put him in his place, and she had no idea that he was going to fight back. She had no idea that her who she was and her persona wasn't going to play right. Now, the best thing that she did was hire her CIA director, PR person, and her attorneys, able to get these things taken off. But I don't think her reputation is what it's going to be after. She's doing everything she can to change her reputation, but whether she wins or whether she loses the lawsuit, it's going to be her reputation, because she has a horde of people who are not feeling her, and they're not going to her movies, they're not doing any of those things.
Mhm.
So all of this, like I said, even if she wins, her reputation is in tatters.
Tina, do you agree with all of that? Have you been following the case, Tina?
I've been kind of in and out of Blake and Baldoni, because it seems like when it hit, I was into it, and then it seems like every day it was just coming. I'm like, I can't keep up with her and Diddy at the same time, so I had to make a choice. What I will say is, what she has done or what she's doing is not uncommon with women. I just think people don't talk about it. Like, if in our community, if you think back to the 90s with Pebbles and TLC, she was a very powerful executive. There's always been rumblings around.
Yep.
There's always been rumblings of Nicki Minaj stopping people's bags. So Beyonce, and I'm part of the Beehive, but Beyonce has an enormous power and control when she wants to wield it. Does she choose to wield it in a negative way? Maybe not. I don't think so, until stories come out. So women definitely in this industry have power. Desiree Perez at Rock Nation. Oh my God.
You got to cover that one. I don't know if you're following that lawsuit.
Their daughter. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, us three got to cover it with the TTG and all that. I'm going to put that on the agenda, because that is a crazy one right there. Desiree Perez for sure.
So women in power in the entertainment business is not an anomaly to me. I've always seen these powerful figures. I've always heard of the things that they do. Now, Blake utilizing her power and influence to help people get jobs, that happens. Look at Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan. It happens. What is interesting to me about her in this Baldoni situation is, kind of like Pam said, she obviously had the more power in this situation. And I think when she came out, she used the Me Too type of thing, and a lot of people sided with him and was like, well, whoa. Now, it sounds like you came in and took this situation over, and we kind of want to help the little guy over here. So I've been following it in and out, but women in power is not unknown. Like, it's some, what we call them? It's some divas. It's some divas out here that got some power and control in the industry for sure.
Yeah, and I wonder, one of my Roman empires too is it says BJ interviewed the daughter of Desiree Perez. Okay, I'll make sure I get that clip, Christina. Thank you. Because that is an interesting case. But I always wonder how things would have turned out. Would this picture that you see here with Blake and Brandon, would that have been Baldoni next to her if he had obliged? If he had given in to everything and said, sure, we can cancel the shoot because you don't feel comfortable or whatever. Sure, you could take as many sick days. Sure, we can work around the Deadpool schedule. Sure, like yes. And I know that he did basically was a yes man to her, so he did say yes a lot. But I wonder if there would have been some kind of you guys want to know what's so weird right now? And I keep sorry about this that I just stopped, but it happened on my other feed when I was trying to put up a video earlier today, and then it stopped because I didn't touch nothing. I'm sitting here just talking, and that picture of Blake just disappeared. I'm not joking.
Blake got her hitters out on you.
We got Voldemort up in this chat, Lara. That was so creepy. I was like, wait, what just happened? Like, I didn't touch nothing. I wasn't touching anything.
I don't think so. I think and Here's why I don't think so. I think too, Blake she ran up on a guy who wasn't enthralled with her like that. And again, I don't know these people, but these are just my opinion. You're talking about someone whose own husband has these very narrow parameters about his women and how he wants them to act and what he wants them to do and all those things. I personally think a lot of this came from a hurt feeling, because I think that she wanted something, or she wanted some type of validation from Justin Baldoni, and he didn't give it to her. And also too, she's with a guy who is because I did a whole video on this about his exes and all this other stuff, and it is allegedly, but he has a jealous streak. And I think he looked at Justin Baldoni, and I think because there was a point in the lawsuit or something, if as I'm remembering, because again it was so much, where he was wanting to read the script. He wanted to know how she was going to be interacting with Justin. She wanted to know all these things. This is why the meetings had to take place at their home, because again, there's a power dynamic. He has the power and the control within his home. He's talking to him. He's like, oh, well, I was being very nice to him. But we all have seen that the way that Ryan Reynolds is nice to you is really not nice. If he's being nice to you, he is spewing some type of evil or some type of hate towards you. We're learning that because, Tina and I watch these Deadpool movies, and we understand what happened with the first cast and the director of the first Deadpool. We understand that there's some dynamics going on over there. So you can't make me believe that she was going on to this movie. He looked at Justin Baldoni, and visually Justin Baldoni is a handsome man. You can't make me believe, again, allegedly, that she made some kind of, because we've seen her in interviews, she made some kind of sarcastic or curt remark to him, and he rebuffed what she said. And so then even she tried to go in with the creative side. Hey, no one lets me create. Let me do this. But once he started seeing that she was taking his work, she was taking the script, and she was trying to change it into something else, he stopped it. He kind of buffed it back a little bit. And once that happened, then he had problems. My issue was there would have been no way that I'd have signed that little 1819. He didn't sign it, but his partner signed it. But they should have gotten with their attorneys. They should have gotten with their attorneys first. I know that they were concerned about the money and all this other stuff. However, if this Sarowitz guy is willing to back him through a whole lawsuit, I don't see where there would have been the biggest issue in backing in regards to her salary and booting her out.
Losing all that money. You're losing it anyway and going through reputational
right
harm.
That 17-point thing. I wouldn't have and she never did sign her contract. So boot her.
Yeah, exactly. That was the other thing. It was like she wasn't even contractually tied to it, which is crazy that they could have, let her go at any point. We'll probably know more during the trial. Tina, did you want to add anything? Because I want to take the last 30 minutes here to go into Fat Joe before we log out. Did you have anything else to add on the Blake thing?
It's gonna be interesting. He has a solid lawyer, but I think she's not going. She's not going down without a fight. If this goes to trial, it's going to be on the level of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and I hope it's televised. This is going to be a very interesting he said, she said, a big guy, little guy battle. So I'm interested for sure. We need to talk about Diddy before we leave too.
Yeah. I'm going to go into Diddy right now that you're talking about Brian Friedman, because he actually represented what is her name, Capricorn Clark, which I just found out, and it was crazy because he went on he went on Megyn Kelly, and what he said, I was like, is he Team Diddy? Because doesn't he represent? Because he was basically kind of
it's in federal court, Pam. Okay.
He was more he was more so implying that that like the government didn't have a real good case. I don't know, it was kind of cryptic, but when he said it, I was like, wait, but he represents Capricorn Clark, so is he saying? I don't know if he was just saying it from a legal aspect, but if y'all get a chance to watch that Megyn Kelly, or I'll send you the clip to X. which I thought was crazy. But before we get into Fat Joe, let's get into the Diddy stuff where it's Jane and Cassie, their testimony right now. They are let's see, will it let me share that one? It did, huh? There you go. That's how we know. I kept trying to reshare that Blake page and it was not letting me. So we're basically halfway through the trial because the case in chief is about to end on Monday, right?
Yeah, this trial is over. Diddy's team said they're only gonna do 1 or 2 days, so we're at the end.
So he said 2 days, right? So earlier in my stream, I couldn't remember if it was 2 weeks or just a couple days. So at first they said that we're gonna need 2 weeks, and then now they're saying they're just gonna need a couple days. So one of the things that I wanted to discuss was Jane's testimony. Now that we've heard pretty much all of it, because Monday is just going to be another summary witness, right? Was Jane the person who you think might have steered the jury? Because right now we're looking at the predicate acts that he needs 2 for RICO, and then the trafficking and the prostitution across state lines are the other 2 outside of the RICO, right? So there's 3 charges, and inside the RICO there's the bribery, there's all that stuff. And both Jane and Cassie were witnesses that were testifying to this kind of quid pro quo type of thing that some people would say, like they were getting perks in exchange for doing these FOs, where Jane actually even had a contract, right? Like an actual contract that said, you do this weekly, whatever, I'm gonna pay your rent. Which to me, when I read that, I was like, okay, well, that sounds like it's everybody worked it out. They signed an agreement. Like at what point what I mean, and I get that she was like in love with him and was willing to do anything, for him. But what do you think? These are the 3 questions that I had queued up for the chat, or for you guys and for the chat. Was, how is the jury going to see the testimony? How do the public going to see the testimony? And how does the legal system, which is actually one that's already answered, because the legal system obviously is seeing this as a RICO charge, right? He's got a federal indictment and the legal system saw it as RICO. But let's start with Tina. What's your opinion on the testimonies, whether the prosecution built a good enough case, and is the jury going to see it as RICO, or are they going to see it as this kind of like, perks for FOs? And how do you think that the public is looking at it?
So my opinion on this Diddy case is, I felt like the prosecution started out strong. I think if they would have ended this case after Capricorn Clark, I think this would have been a lot stronger case, because I think once Capricorn Clark gets on there, to me, she solidifies the RICO. I think adding Jane on. So this is the good thing about Jane. The good thing about Jane is she solidified the flying the escorts across state lines, and she helped build onto the RICO predicate. The trafficking for her and Cassie is going to be very gray. He might beat those or get a mistrial on those. He needs to be worried about that RICO charge. That's the bad one. That is so bad, because if they get him convicted on that RICO charge, forget the time. They're taking all of his money. And not only are they taking all of his money, I'm taking your kids' money. I'm taking your everything in your mama name and your kids' name. I'm getting it all.
He's got 18 lawsuits waiting for him too. Civil lawsuits.
Yeah. To me, when Jane first started testifying, to me, she actually sounded more like she was being trafficked. She was being trafficked more than Cassie, because she said, he treated me like a worker. He only called me when he wanted the freak offs. He's giving me $10,000 a month. To me, that sounds like you paying for what we tried to get Tyler to do. Sound like you paying for to have fun time with. So I'm like, Diddy, that's a little shaky. But as Cross came on and she talked about how, well, I did love him. I did do these things because I did want to make him happy. That puts a lot of reasonable doubt in jurors' mind on, like, well, wasn't she? And I don't think it's clear with her or Cassie on the trafficking. A lot of this is going to come down to jury instructions. He's cooked on the escorts. I mean, they got him dead to rights. I'm talking about the past 2 days when they had them up there, connected them receipts, them dots. I'm like, oh my God. The RICO is what he needs to be scared of. And I think they got him on it. If you get 12 people in there that goes and follows the law, he's done on RICO. The trafficking, it's a little gray for me. I don't know if you can get 12 people to say, yes, these 2 girlfriends were trafficked. It's going to be hard. It's tough.
What about you, Pam?
So again, I think that as far as Jane's testimony, she started off pretty strong. They needed her testimony, that they wanted to get the other girl as well to solidify, because again, with the RICO charges, there has to be a incident that happened within the 5 or 10 years, and then they can go back as far as they want to. They needed her for that. I think where for me that they may lose the jury with Jane when she joined another prominent rich rapper and his girlfriend for her birthday at a freak off. So at that point, you were doing the freak offs and you voluntarily went to do those. So the trafficking part, I think that he may be acquitted on that. Now for the transportation, yeah, they got him good. I think again, I don't know how they're going to write the jury instructions, but
we should do a live when they come up with the jury instructions, because that's one of my favorite things to do is the jury instructions.
I think this is what I've described it as, this is a puzzle. And it's the prosecution trying to put this puzzle together, but they're having to convince us that the puzzle pieces actually go in the puzzle. I think that they did a tremendous job on the trafficking. I think we clearly see on the bribery from the Intercontinental Hotel. I think that they have that. I think they have, I don't know. I don't think they have the arson with Kid Cudi. I think whatever happened with those with the fire investigator or something, something fell flat to me. I think that the prosecution also, to even get those 2 charges, they needed those bodyguards. I am surprised that there is no bodyguard that has testified yet. They need a bodyguard, because apparently the bodyguard is the money person. Apparently the bodyguard is the middle person that they have to get the money to do all those other things. They have him on the drugs. They have him on the drugs.
That's why I said we got 2 RICO predicates with the drugs and the escorts. That's it.
Yeah, and yeah.
I thought they
the bribery,
and the obstruction of justice.
Obstruction,
that was kind of gray, because it could have been, the defense. I mean, I'm hoping that
the kidnapping, like they got him to me on so many RICO predicates.
The forced labor. I think the Mia couldn't sleep for 5 days.
The obstruction of justice was kind of gray, because he says he goes on to say that that was like to for his image and not necessarily
for his image
to the. So I'm not excited, obviously, because this is a horrible trial, but I'm interested to see what the defense is going to come up with, because part of the reason why I follow all this legal drama is because of the courtroom trials, the jury instructions. We just had Karen Reed. I don't know if y'all followed that case, but how crazy those jury instructions were. That's why it took them so long, because it was like you almost couldn't say no to the other ones. You had to like really know how to read it to be able to. And I think that's also why they ended up just going with the OUI, because they said no to the other ones, and there was that 3rd check mark. But it does come down to I find all that stuff fascinating. The jury instructions, like when the lawyers go at it from the defense, the cross exams, the redirects and all that stuff. Because it's almost like a little chess match, right? Like you're watching like tennis or something. It's almost like a sport, but obviously there's nothing exciting about it. There's lots of people, Diddy's a dad. There's a lot of people that are going through a lot of stuff, but yeah, I think that the jury is going to have a hard time with with the sex trafficking because, you know, it wasn't quite clear. But for me, the two that I think they will get him on is the bribery and this obstruction of justice. The arson.
Or the drugs, the distribution. Like, if you notice, every single person they put on the stand, they ask him, has Diddy ever gave you drugs? Yes. I mean, that's, people think of drug distribution as you got to have these heavy pounds of weight moving it across
Right.
the line. Distribution is just simply you have items and you are giving them to people.
Somebody else, right?
Everybody has testified that at some point in time he has gave me drugs. So distribution, bribery, escorts, forced labor, like those is 4 or 5 predicates there. I don't see how he beats the RICO. If he beats the RICO, he might be the luckiest man alive. I don't see, because if you get him on the escorts, that's already one RICO predicate there. And we obviously see that everybody is working together to bring the escorts in. And then we see that everybody worked together to bribe this guy. Everybody worked together to make sure he had his drugs. So I don't know. If he beats this case, he's the luckiest man ever.
People are saying that, oh, you know, the prosecution didn't do its job. That's why they only need 2 days. But other people are saying that there is no like real defense. So they only need 2 days because that's all they got. So
I would be pissed. Be pissed if you're only putting up 2 days worth of defense. I don't know what they could do, but I just feel like they did a good job poking holes during the trial. But I just felt like they would at least put on a week. You know what I'm saying? They would at least bring in producers who said, yes, you know, I did try to work with Cassie. She would show up late. You know, people to kind of co-sign that Diddy did at least try to help Cassie, because Cassie's thing is he wouldn't let me work. He kept me in. I don't know.
Well, if he brings in that video, her BET performance.
Yeah,
he tried to distract. I mean, and that could work with the jury. The jury, you guys forget, they've been there for weeks and weeks and weeks. They're fatigued from all the FO videos, how many times they had to see it. That's why I was like, I don't even know if that's gonna you know, like if they've been
desensitized. But let me tell you why they showed them these last the last tapes. Because after they put up the receipts of, this is when Jules transferred in, this is when Bob came, this is when Johnny came, this is when these people came. They put the videos on so you can then see, here's Cassie with Jules, here's Cassie with Bob. I don't think they're just showing the freak off tapes just to show them. I think it was to corroborate everything we just showed you. Here's every single one of these guys here on these dates that match up with these receipts. Is that going to convince people that it's trafficking? No, but we are at least got him on the prostitution, the escorts. We at least got him on that for sure.
They were trying to get those escorts embedded in their brains.
But that's only a minimum of 1 year, maximum of 10. So if they only get him on that, he might get time served. So he has to be worried about that RICO. That has to be the main one.
So we have about 15 minutes here, but I want to go into the Fat Joe thing. Do you guys want to come back to do a full episode on Fat Joe? I'm going to go like a little overview, but I think that, you know, we've all worked really well together, and maybe we can, you know, do another live covering, you know, some of the other stuff as well, and do a deep dive on the Fat Joe stuff, even though I know Pam's over there like, I don't want to read it. I don't want to get into it. Like, there's no
I'm fine. You know, I've laid back. I've gotten real comfortable. When I lay back, I'm real comfortable now. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We're not gonna go into like the nitty-gritty details because it does get a little crazy. But Lauren Conlon reported on X, and she said the Fat Joe lawsuit is insane. It's 157 pages. I skimmed it. I haven't read the entire thing. I read the pages she put there. I'm kind of like Pam too, where it was like, you got to be in that certain like mood. And I thought she was going to put out a video, because then I'm like, I could just put my headphones on and just have her read it in her soft voice, soft and calming. She's like, he's being sued by his former hype man, Terrence Dixon, and the allegations are wild. He allegedly did stuff in front of him 4,000 times and even asked him to unalive DMX and 50 Cent. Sounds like 50 Cent's security was too tight. So there's all kinds of like RICO stuff in here, which this is a civil lawsuit, but it sounds criminal from what I read, right? I wonder if this is going to be like another Cassie situation where it started off as civil and then the federal prosecutors were like, "Ooh, we got another one."
They're looking at it. Because and here's the thing: the attorney that wrote it,
Yeah.
you have this little love-hate relationship with him, because we've
Yep.
known in the past that he has embellished
Yep.
quite a bit. However, I think that there's a couple of pieces in there that I think will trigger the feds to kind of look at it and maybe do an initial search. Anything with the minors going on in here, I think that someone is going to take a look at that, particularly where you are buying a said minor a condominium down the street from where you live in Florida. I think that they're going to take a look at that. Also, you transporting a minor across not only the state lines, but you going way over to a whole nother country with the minor.
You get her the
I
BBL.
think
It was a BBL that he supposedly got her.
yes.
Do we have a year on that? Because I haven't read it. What did they say the year that this thing happened with the
I
BBL
can't
and
remember.
stuff?
They do, but I don't
can't
remember off the top of my head,
Okay.
and I don't have it pulled up. I don't have the doc
Let me
up
look.
there.
And then you have the lawyer, not lawyer, that's in here. You know that
Yeah,
they're
I'm
going to be
gonna
looking.
pull up, since I love you, Pam, because you always help me transition to the next slide. Like for some reason, like when you say something, it's like that's the next slide I got queued up. It's actually Tina's post on X about the lawyer. So we'll talk a little bit about that real
And
quick.
then you have an instance where there is a recorded call between two of Fat Joe's associates where they were trying to take out Prune old Terrence off the timeline. So it's a lot of stuff that would trigger. Those are things that can trigger, because I learned this year that we talk about these civil lawsuits, but civil lawsuits can trigger criminal investigation if there's something in here that will pop that. And there's at least 2 or 3 different things that are in here that's quite troubling.
And some people
And
think that Baldoni might, the Baldoni Lively might turn criminal, because there's 2 people that have hired a lawyer that also specialized in criminal stuff, because there was wiretapping going into phones and things like that. Long after, one of the employers got the phone legally. Later on, they find out that she had been in her iCloud through her talking through the attorney, like as of like March of this year or something. So
yeah. And also in this too, there is mention of his business, his quote unquote business, because there was a line in there that said that Fat Joe reports on his IRS form that he only makes like $35,000 a year. But he has this extravagant, like he owning condos and all this other stuff. There's a whole section in there where they talk about those PPP loans. And I don't know if he had his PPP loan forgiven, but if they're showing that he's doing something untoward with that PPP loan, they may go back into, I'm not sure, but there's a lot of meat in this one that could trigger the feds to look at it.
I want to talk about the lawyer real quick. And Tina had posted Tyrone Blackburn is the lawyer that's representing the man who's suing Fat Joe, and she says, I don't know if he's an op or a freedom fighter for trying to take Fat Joe down. He wrote this lawsuit like a federal indictment, which is what Pam is talking about. It says Tyrone tends to not be the most honest or ethical lawyer, in my opinion. He represented who was that? I had it up here too.
Little Rod, Capricorn Clark. No, not Capricorn. Bana.
The girl, the balcony girl, right?
Yep, Bana.
So
and she came out and said,
he tried to,
look, some of that stuff, I didn't tell him to do that. So that made me feel like, I don't know,
like he
Tyrone.
was trying to, he's the guy who said that she got essayed by P. Diddy, right? Because he grabbed the boob and stuff and started to
he mentioned some things, and he was admonished by the lawyer, because a lot of Little Rod's lawsuit was pared down because they were saying that Tyrone Blackburn had embellished a lot of stuff, and he knew that he embellished a lot of stuff.
Right.
So this is Katt Williams, who, if you're not following her, she also does legal stuff, and I love her. I followed her during the Jonathan Majors trial, but
Mhm.
she posted Fat Joe filed a defamation lawsuit against Tyrone Blackburn, the attorney, on April 29th. And in response, Blackburn posted the below picture and caption on Instagram, pretty bold. And so he says, this is the lawyer. So this is back in April. He gets hit with the defamation lawsuit. He says, you ran and filed a baseless lawsuit against my client and me in SDNY. So this is why a lot of people are saying that this current lawsuit is kind of like a sort of retaliation for the defamation, like, oh, you're going to sue me, I'm going to sue you type of thing. But he goes on to say, for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress in an attempt to get ahead of the forthcoming lawsuit against your client, Fat Joe. No matter how hard you try to deflect and cherry pick emails and conversations, your client has a lot of explaining to do. I'd invited you and me to meet with the SDNY prosecutors, but you have yet to respond.
Ooh.
You can bring your baseless accusations of extortion, and I will bring the 19-minute audio recording of your client's I don't know how to say it,
Felonious.
felonious
Felonious. Uh-huh.
henchman, Pistol Pete, soliciting a former member of Terror Squad to lure my client to a specific location for Pistol Pete and his thugs to pound him out. Your client ordered a hit job against my client. Pistol Pete also discussed how he had to run down on Tony Yayo, a member of Gun It, due to some feud with at 50 Cent, and run up into clubs to attack other victims. Your client should also prepare to answer the questions surrounding 2 additional recordings where 2 females discuss your client's disgusting pattern of grooming and sleeping with underage people.
Yeah.
So that was heavy to unpack. That's why I'm like, it's gonna need its whole episode because there's so many players here. We got lawyer drama, we got, you know, hip hop, how it works in the industry. Because I know a lot of people are like, oh, why are you surprised about this Diddy stuff and all that? Like, this is how the industry, hip hop industry, worked with, the henchmen and when people were talking about the Kid Cudi stuff.
Mhm.
This is how it worked. Like, it's par for the course or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was my first time actually reading that caption, and I was like, whew. Talk about receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots.
And when you read it, you're gonna be like, huh? Doing
if
all of this?
if Diddy loses this case, I think Cassie has now set the precedent on how to file a federal lawsuit that rolls over into federal charges, because she was the first, and I've been reading a lot of lawsuits for a long time. She was the first lawsuit I ever read that I said, this looks like a federal indictment. I got a video of it from 2 years ago. I'd never seen a lawsuit written like a federal indictment. And now we see Tyrone Blackburn copying that same type of scenario. So I don't know if the Southern District of New York holds any weight to it. They're definitely looking into it for sure. They love a good old celebrity case. So we just got to see how this plays out.
We know that from Jonathan Majors. I'm like, yeah. They love they will, that one, they made something out of a nothing to me. But
that is why the law is so tricky, because, and that's why I said this Diddy trial is going to be tricky, because I was one of the people who I wanted Jonathan Majors to win that case. But when that video came out and I saw him pick her up and put her back in, I said, they're probably going to get him on that, because the law is the law. You just can't do it. So,
but the one thing with that one is funny because the jury instructions on that one, it was, intentional infliction, and then there was unintentional infliction. And what he got charged with was basically accidentally hurting her.
Right.
Like through the motions of doing something else. They never said he intentionally hurt her.
Right.
The end game on that was that it was through the acts of him trying to put her back into the car that he unintentionally hurt her. And the media ran with, which it didn't, the jury instruction and what they convicted him of didn't apply with his punishment, because he had to go take DV classes. So it's like, if it was unintentional, like, it didn't add up. So that was a curious case, and that's how I met y'all. So thank you, SDNY, for introducing me to my friends Pam and Tina.
Yeah.
Couldn't have done it without the great folks
I
over
met a
on.
lot of people covering that case. That's why I made my legal page, because I'm like, now my legal stuff is blurring into my movies, and I got to kind of keep it separated, because I started getting lawyers following me, and I'm like, oh, I got to separate some of this stuff. It's getting too
And Pam, you
convoluted. But
mostly cover legal, right? You do entertainment
Pam
news
do
too.
it all.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, when I started my page, it was just the things that I'm interested in. The page is my personality. I'm interested in the legal stuff. I'm interested in celebrity and some celebrity gossip. I'm interested in movies. I don't do as much reviews anymore because there hasn't just been any movie probably in the
Mm-hmm.
past 2 years that I have seen that I want to review. I'll watch it, but it's just like I don't. The passion is not there right now. My passion right now is in my celebrity legal news, my celebrity gossip news, my just my little pop culture chats when I talk about what's going on in the world and stuff like that. Uh I want to talk about politics, but then I don't because it gets too convoluted for me. So I just keep that to myself. But I
Mm-hmm.
just yeah. So, but right now, that's what I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying reading these and just reading them and then trying to give people the best advice that I can give them about certain things and how not to just get caught up in certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Be who you are authentically, but there's just some things I think, because everyone says, us older generation doesn't like to talk to the younger generation. And I really do. I just, you just have to figure out how to say it. And
Mm-hmm.
talking through these lawsuits helped me get out what I need to get out. So I'm very encouraged that you were listening and you were hearing the information that I was espousing and was able to get something from it. So I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing at this point in time by reading these lawsuits. I may read Fat Joe, but that tells me that that's going to be like the Baldoni case. It's going to be a 5 hour
150
stream.
pages. You're gonna be up there forever.
It'll be
But
a 4 or 5
I want
hours.
to do kind of like a Jerry Springer final thought with you, Pam, because that's what I loved about your last live stream. Before we end, but let's just wrap up the Fat Joe stuff. We are gonna do a full episode on it once because like I said, I haven't read the full documents and there's so much to dive into. But one of the things that the last screenshot I had here was that the lawyer Blackburn was actually already chided by SDNY, I believe this is, and he's basically saying that some of these filings were like schoolyard taunts, and he's already doesn't have a very good reputation there. That any member of the bar would espouse such an absurd understanding of the law is not just disturbing but shocking. So it'll be interesting to see those two lawyers go at it and see what comes out of that. Again, let me pull up before I look at. I love how she's shaking her head. I'm like, when I read that post that you posted, I was like, I have to put that up in the stream because that's hilarious. You're like,
It's just so you don't know with Tyrone. You don't know. You don't know.
Yeah.
so this is Tina's page on X. It's at she_dreads with the Z me. So follow her on X if you are not already following. I know I brought it up at the beginning of the chat, but that was on YouTube. This is her X page, and you can see she does entertainment. She's got movies here. I know that I'm like locked in on her T'Challa and Black Panther because that's a conversation we've been having for years, years, years
Yes.
and years. I was like, I'll pack back into the chat, but so here's some of her stuff. Make sure you go follow, and then we have Pam's page. Let me pull that up here. And I wanted to again thank you for you guys for showing up. We'll for sure have to do it again. We'll probably have a bigger crowd after because this is my first time doing late night. So some of my afternoon followers will drag them to the late night stream. This is just kind of like a last minute
Yeah.
stream.
It's okay. Look, it's a test run.
So here's Pam's page right here. And it's Pam Entertain Me 1. So that's her X page, and you can check out some of her insights. Here's the Tyler Perry stream, so you guys can just watch it right here on it. You don't have to go all the way to YouTube if you're on X more than like me. I'm more on X than I am on YouTube. She's got streams on Kanye West, maybe you guys can come on one of my daytime episodes because I'm going to cover Ye and all his civil lawsuits and all that stuff. So, yeah, so follow her on the page, and I'm going to leave the platform with Pam. Her final thought. One of the questions that I had going out is, let me bring it up here. It was, in the industry, do you think the perks always come with the price, and how widespread is this? Any, like you said, you like to leave your final thought with the public, and she's got them wise words, Miss Pam over here. So go ahead and lead us out of the
I,
chat.
I think, and I've said this before, I think there is nothing wrong with you all being freaky. There's nothing wrong with you all having whatever predilection that you have. However, when you have these predilections and there is something else that's important to you, like your job, your reputation, uh, uh, what your mama and them think about you, then you need to find a you are the perfect candidate to learn how to compartmentalize and make sure you keep certain things separate. Keep that separate from your business, keep that separate from whatever. And as far as, do I think that these things are prevalent? Hollywood is hedonistic. I believe that everyone has a little perk. I think that people know about people's little perks and things like that. It's just a matter of, do those things butt up against the law? Is somebody getting hurt, or is somebody being crapped on, or whatever the wording is that you want to look at it. But my thing is, if you're going to do this, y'all have to separate this stuff from there, because this makes no sense. That and for me, it's sad to see grown men not have the sexual discipline to be able to conduct their lives. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with that, but y'all, you got to have discipline in all this. It shouldn't. There are people who are willing to do this thing. Why are you going to a girlfriend or a woman who you met, and then you decide that you want to 304? They call it 304 over on TikTok. You want to 304 her out because you have these whatever predilections, and now you're sitting here with your whole legacy in jeopardy. And I'm talking about Diddy, and I'm talking about Tyler Perry. You're talking about your legacy being in jeopardy, where your children are not going to be able to enjoy it because of this, because you don't have the discipline that you need. And I hope that this is a cautionary tale to people. Y'all better do right by some of these folks, because you're gonna stretch them too far, and then look what happens. You have $1 billion that may belong to the the Southern District of New York in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Amen to that, Miss Pam. And anything you'd like to add before we go outro, Tina?
I've told this story before, that this isn't just a Hollywood thing. I work in corporate America. I had a guy that we used to work together at a previous job. And I hadn't seen him in a while because he moved away. And so I hit one of my friends up. I'm like, yo, where's so-and-so? I haven't seen him. And this was around the time that the Diddy case was breaking. And I found out that he was doing some of the same things. He was trafficking. He was a man trafficking two underage boys. They were 16, doing the same thing, giving them drugs, taking them to these weird sex parties or whatever. And so I was freaked out, because I'm like, no, not so-and-so. We got pictures together. Like, y'all don't say everybody at the Diddy parties was doing it, because I'm in pictures with a guy who's in prison right now for doing these things that I had no idea. This was a whole corporate executive working for one of the major telecommunications companies in the world. And I had if anybody would have told me this was happening, I'm like, no, not him. Nah, not that guy. So this isn't just a powerful billionaire male. There's people on our level doing this stuff, and it's crazy. And like Pam said, especially for some of these men and women that are millionaires and billionaires, and you have all this money, there's literally people you can pay who would love to do this stuff. And I'm not saying go get you a 304. Go to Vegas where it's legal, okay? Have all the fun you want to have, but don't get these girlfriends and boyfriends. And that's what pisses me off about Diddy. You bring these women into your orbit, you love bomb them, you're very charismatic, and then all of a sudden you're coercing them into this lifestyle where, and I'm not saying they couldn't have left, but it's like, dang, bro, I just want to be with you. I don't really want to be doing this. So it's just, all of this stuff is just strange and weird to me. And y'all just be careful. This ain't a rich person thing. As a poor person, let's don't get caught up in this foolishness either.
And that's our episode for today, which is, where do you draw the line between, perks, favors, how, like Pam brought up with, if you're going to have a lifestyle like that, where do you, how do you do that in a way that isn't harmful to others?
Yeah.
And,
Will and Jada.
Yeah, she Will and Jada. Oh, allegedly.
T.I. Tiny, like people be doing it.
I'm going to I need a bar, and allegedly the rapper that was name dropped was Ye and Bianca. So it does happen, and there's people who are not recording it, because that's another thing. I wonder, would we be here if he didn't have the hubris to record all this stuff and keep receipts and all that stuff, but it was an interesting conversation, and I did look at this in different points of views. I actually flattened Diddy's head. Look, you can tell that I'm like new to these thumbnails.
No, it's okay.
You got Fat Joe and you got Diddy's heads all flattened up here. But thank you guys so much. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Laura. I appreciate y'all, and we will be back on the next one. I'll try and do maybe like weekly Friday nights, or I'll try and figure out when some of my other creators. I don't like to do them at the same time that other people are doing their lives, so I'll have to figure out when the next one will be. And if you're not subscribed yet to my channel, hit that bell. Go ahead and like the video and leave a comment once you're out of here to boost the algorithm. And we'll see you guys on the next one. This is Objection. This is CJ, Pam, and Tina. We're out.
Bye.